Temba is in hospital seconds after his baby was born. And the nurse says to Temba, "Oh, your baby is so pretty." Temba looks at the nurse. He's pleased, but then he goes, "Really? Come on, don't you say that to everybody." The nurse shakes her head and says, "No, not at all." Temba says, "But what do you say then when the baby's ugly?" The nurse smiles and says, "Ah, your baby just takes after the father." Good evening and welcome to Talk with Rams. You know, I'd like to say good evening, but I'm slightly depressed today. And I don't know why, particularly today, but these stories of gender-based violence just got to me today. I mean, it was just too much to read about these stories. And I'm asking myself, what are we doing? What is wrong with us? What's wrong with society? What's wrong with you and I? And I'm now talking to the male viewers. What is it that we are doing to this society? One day I hope to talk about it here, even though we do a business show, but you know, maybe business must stop a bit so that we talk about some of the issues affecting us. So let's get to the subject of tonight. This is Talk with Rams, live on Facebook, Instagram, and also streaming on YouTube. On all platforms is Talk with Rams. Do follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and do subscribe to our YouTube page. It is Monday, as you know. On Monday, it's Motivation Monday with the one and only DrThandoSibanda. And today we're talking creative, positive momentum in your life. I said in the promo earlier that there are things that can take away your momentum, and some of them may be as silly as the weather, or sometimes as serious as COVID-19, but many other things, including, you know, lack of money, loss of income, breakups and stuff like that, and sometimes just lethargy, and we lose momentum. So tonight, I hope when we finish, and I'm putting Dr. T on the spot, that we would have picked up some tips on how to create positive momentum and make tomorrow better than yesterday. Good evening, Dr. T, and wonderful having you tonight.
Good evening, Rams. How are you doing, my brother?
I'm dark and lovely. Thank you for asking. How are you?
No, man, I'm freezing. I'm doing the best to keep warm. So if you see a lot of movement tonight, just know I'm trying to generate some heat, man.
Great stuff. Well, let's generate some momentum in your life, Dr. T, and hopefully into everybody else's life.
Sure. I look forward to this evening.
Let's start with the word momentum. What are we talking about there, Dr. T?
Right. You know, when we are talking about momentum, I think it's and it's a good place to start that we quantify this for our viewers as well as our listeners. Now, the concept of momentum is by definition is a very interesting one, because it speaks of a quantity of motion of a moving body, which is measured as a product of its mass, right, and its velocity. So let me break it down. You know, it's literally the impetus or the push or energy that is gained by a moving object. So when we talk momentum, we're not talking stability, we are talking movement, but there are two key things there in momentum. In fact, when you look at the Newtonian mechanics, there is a formula for momentum. It is momentum is equals to mass and velocity. So it's important when we bring it back to people's life to say you need to add value, because the value creates the mass in your life so that there can be velocity, a kind of thing. So that's the basic definition. So it's really about creating that forward movement, which happens as a result of what you have within you that can push your life forward. I think it's very, very critical.
Yeah, to get that movement going, Dr. T, It's not easy because, things happen in life. Life changes. I have had dreams, but things happened. I grew up. I had to leave my parents' house. I had to get a job. Then I got married. Then I got divorced. Then I had children. Then all those things, and those things tend to affect momentum in life. So, in short, what would you say are the main, or is the main challenge that people face in their lives as far as progress is concerned?
You're absolutely right, Rams. Life has got its own pace, and sometimes life knocks us off our own pace, in terms of responding to it and moving at a very particular speed. Now, the main challenge with a lot of people today is that there is no momentum in people's lives. There's no or very little momentum in our lives. And let me speak to the three types of traps that we find, or what I call these momentum busters that we find in people's lives. The first one, I call it the trap of the treadmill. The trap of the treadmill. In the trap of the treadmill, you will realize that a lot of people are actually not progressing, but what they are doing is that they are repeating the same year again and again and again while getting older, and there is no forward movement in their lives. I'm sure you've seen a rat on a treadmill. When it's inside the cage.
Yes, a hamster.
Really,
a hamster, Dr. T.
Oh, a hamster.
Yes.
That's what it is. So it's a certain trap where you are literally year in, year out. It's the same routine. You just make barely enough just to, I always say that, for example, if you are employed, they pay you enough for you to keep coming back, and you work just hard enough for them not to fire you, kind of thing. So you've worked out some equilibrium, but it's really not giving you any forward momentum. I call it the trap of the treadmill. A lot of people are caught in the trap of the treadmill where there is no progress in life. There's a lot of movement, but there is no progress. That's the first trap in terms of the challenge. The second one, I call it the trap of the rat race. The trap of the rat race says we are busy in a process. We are caught up in a system that does not connect us to purpose, right? It connects us to process. Now, I need to explain this because when you look at, for example, today, we've got what is called the industrial age mindset versus the digital age mindset. The industrial age mindset, that's where most of our parents grew up in. It was a very, the structure was very silo. You've got the managers on top that manage the risk of the company. And then as it comes down, you have not decisions, but you have to work process. And so what it did is that it's almost like what was only important for you is that your muscles are hired. We hire your muscles and we hire your hands, and it's got nothing to do with your brain. And so the challenge with that is that we find still a lot of people are in that scenario in life where we wake up, we do our 8 to 5, we put in a lot of energy. We are running after a rate that we will never catch. A lot of people haven't caught the rat. I mean, I'm yet to find one who says, I caught the rat, man. Here is the rat, kind of thing. So we are in a race where our lives are slowly, we're getting older on one side, but we are in a process that is not really adding much value back into our lives. We barely survive, barely make it, and that's what it is. There is no other forward movement. And then the third trap, in terms of forward momentum, I call it the trap of the fishbowl. So the trap of the fishbowl says that, you see, a fish will only grow as to the size of its fishbowl. So you'll find that even if you've got a really cool fish that could grow bigger, but if you put it in a small fishbowl, that circumference will limit its growth. And so you find that a lot of people are limited by circumstances, and circumstances squeeze whatever forward momentum one could have in their lives. And our progress is only as far and as big as the circumstances in which we find ourselves. There is no capacity or ability to break to the next level. There is no capacity to break free out of the circumstances that we face, and so we grow to the size of the fishbowl that we are in. And I find that society and a lot of people are caught in these three traps: the trap of the treadmill, the trap of the rat race, and the trap of the fishbowl.
You know, I don't want to digress, Dr. T, but the last part actually tells me a lot about what we do to our children. We put them in a fishbowl. Right. We don't want them to think differently. We confine their thoughts. We get worried when they're on the computer or on their tablets because we don't understand that world. We want them to be confined in this fishbowl, and then they don't grow.
Absolutely, absolutely. But you see, the challenge is that we were brought up like that. You know, a lot of us were brought up, get a good education to get a good job. So as I went to school, what was in my head was job. You know, I need to do very well. You know, then I can work. You know, when I grew up, I wanted to work for Web Law and Barry, you know, which was a law company, you know, or a lot of guys wanted to work for KPMG and you know, Ernst & Young, all these account. So the whole concept was grow up, go to school, pass, so that you can have a job. And so because we were programmed like that, we take that very same limitation and now we are pushing it forward. Maybe the context has changed, but the mindset is still the same. We are not saying, you know what, explore and become an inventor, become an Elon Musk kind of thing, you know, or become a Steve Jobs. No, we are saying do well so that you can have a job. You know, but what do you do? The economy is only giving us what it's giving us, you know. So it's very important for us to, as you are saying, to learn to think and to train our children to think outside the box. It's the trap of the fishbowl. We put them in a fishbowl.
Dr. T, to create that purpose momentum in my life, what do I need? What are the principles that I need to engage with?
All right. Now, when it comes to that, there are some key principles that we need to understand, and I want to build the basis for that here, Rams, on the concept of just understanding life and the two planes on which life runs on, and why momentum is critical, right? Life as a process journey, right? So life has two dimensions. It has process and it has purpose, right? So life as a process simply says that you are on a linear timeline. You were born as a baby. You grow up from being a child, you know, to being a youth, and then from there to being a young adult, now to being an adult. You know, things have changed. You know, you went to college. After now, you find yourself, I'm having to pay my own bills. Oh my God, I've got children. Oh, now I'm an adult. I'm the father in the house. One day I'm gonna become the grandfather. And then one day I will become the ancestor kind of thing. That's a linear process of life. None of us can escape that. You can't cheat and you can't argue that, because life is a process journey. It has an inherent or an internal momentum. It turns on its own axis, just like the earth does on its own axis. So we are all on a linear timeline. That's point number one. But then life also has a purpose dimension to it, so that you can live life either on a process dimension where you are driven by time and you are driven by earning and you are driven by just barely surviving, or you can live life on a purpose dimension where you connect to purpose and you are able to birth something that brings fulfillment back into your life. And so life as a purpose journey depends a lot on you. And that is why that momentum concept is very important. Life as a process does not depend on you. You will get old anyway. You will be, you know, one day you will use a walking stick anyway. If you live that long, you will die anyway. That is rotating on its own axis. It's a linear progression. But purpose is not. Purpose largely depends on you. You literally have to invest some sweat equity into connecting and walking the purpose dimension or the purpose lane of life. And that's why it's very important that you create momentum for your life. And so some of the principles, let me share some of the principles. If we don't have time, I'm going to finish it next week, but I don't want to rush it because I want some people to understand, and I'm laying a very, I'm laying a foundation for this. Right. So it's important in terms of the principle Rams for creating momentum to understand our life in the context of both process and purpose. Right. The first one is understand your prime, understand the concept of prime. Now, the concept of prime says that there are three stages. There are three critical stages in your life that speak to prime. And when we talk of prime here, we're talking of the best possible quality of something. We're talking of the most active, most thriving, most satisfying stage or period of something. For example, you can say he is in the prime of his life, or I can say, give me the prime cut of that meat, you know. So we're talking about the best possible, a platform that someone can land in. So understanding prime is critical, because then we ask ourselves the question of alignment to momentum, to the principles of momentum, right? So your life has three prime periods or three prime stages. You need to know these so that you can make sure that there's alignment and make the best of it. The first one is what I call the physical prime. Physical prime is characterized by strength and energy. And you are in your physical prime in your 20s and your early 30s. It means you are at your strongest at this time. That's why, when
that
you are in your
so
prime,
bad, Dr. T.
Yeah.
That makes me feel very bad, but okay, continue.
I know. They say time doesn't ring a bell. Eh? You just realize, man, I've got some white things here. I've got some white hairs. You realize, oh my gosh. So physical prime is in your 20s and your early 30s, right? And this is when you've got your prime strength. You are strong. You know, you can work the whole day and party the whole night. You are naturally strong. You don't get tired. You know, I was laughing, Rams. Mike Tyson wants to make a comeback in his 50s. You know, they're outing, you know, a Tyson comeback. But the point is that he's not the same as the Mike Tyson of the 20s.
Yes.
That guy that used to knock off people in the first minute, in the first 30 seconds, 60 seconds, he was at the prime of his strength. He could handle pressure. He was quick. He was this and that. Why? Because naturally he was in his prime. So now, even if he fights other 50-year-olds, he fights the the Holyfields of the day and stuff, he is just no longer the same guy. Why? Because the prime of his life in terms of physical strength has passed. So in your prime, that's the season to run, plant things, start stuff, learn, you know, put as much into yourself as you can, because you physically have the energy. You have the energy. I mean, you know, young people just don't get tired, you know. You try to tap in on a Friday, come back Sunday night, you've been partying the whole weekend, and you are back at work on Monday, and you act like you've been resting the whole weekend, and no one can see. So that's the concept of prime. Prime is critical 20s, 30s. The second stage is what we call the intellectual prime. So there is your physical prime in your 20s and 30s, and then you have your intellectual prime that is in your 40s and your early 50s. Now, your intellectual prime is characterized by astuteness or perspicacity, you know, where the characteristics are knowledge and rationality. This is when your aptitude, your understanding, and your mental capacity are at their best. Is that where you are, my brother?
Yeah. I can relate.
Yes, absolutely. You see, at this point, you can understand concepts. You know, your knowledge is firing on all pistons, and you find that a lot of, you know, if you look at, for example, the Nobel Prize, the Nobel laureates, you know, in the 40s and early 50s, you've got most of them won it in that age group, more than in any other age group. You know, and that's where guys like your Albert Einstein, you know, won the Nobel Prize in their 40s, Barack Obama kind of guys, Theodore Roosevelt, Rudyard Kipling, you know, our own Desmond Tutu, you know, just getting into the 40s and your early 50s. Intellectually, you are sharp. You can serve, you know, you can understand concepts, and you are very functional. You know, I know Martin Luther King got it when he was 35, but you can see he was also approaching that you know, you'd only have become stronger and even better. You know, but my point is, the knowledge and rationality are the key when you're in your intellectual primes. That's in your 40s and your 50s. Now, the third stage is your emotional prime. So emotional prime is from your mid-50s, 60s onwards. And the main characteristics of your of emotional prime are wisdom and perspective. You see, these are the years where really you are no longer afraid of anything. You have seen it all. You've seen the pregnant teenager. You've seen the one who's on their third and their fourth marriage. Nothing scares you anymore. and so you have a lot of wisdom, and wisdom comes with perspective. So if you think that you are not fulfilled, guess what? You are still going to the stage of your prime fulfillment. We call it the ages of, or the stage of fulfillment. You know, and Winston Churchill. Remember Winston Churchill? He became prime minister at 71. You know, that's when he actually led Britain in the Second World War. You know, where in 1940 he was 71, and look at his wisdom. In his speeches, never before in the history of mankind was so much owed to so few by so many, you know. And so he comes and he serves. Why? Because he is in his emotional prime and is able to garner the energy of the nation and help people understand that the war will be long, but we're not going to give up. We're going to do 1, 2, 3. It was so easy to actually follow him. And you see that even when he, you know, in 1951, he comes back again when he's 77, and he's re-elected as also the prime minister again. Why? Because it's a stage of wisdom and perspective.
Dr. T, sorry to interrupt you. What role did the whiskey drinking do to that wisdom of Winston Churchill?
I don't know. The whiskey and maybe the pipe. Maybe they.
He was a heavy drinker and a smoker at the time.
They added to the etching. Remember, he actually had to step down at some point because of his health. So
yes.
so we know it was the whiskey and the smoking. but I mean in essence, so when you create momentum, you understand the different stages so that you can apply wisdom back into your life. Your 20s, 30s, strength, 40s, intellect, 50s, emotional prime. So those are the different ages of prime, and they help us then apply wisdom and momentum in our lives.
Okay, now I get you. Now I understand you, and those are the things that drive us, you know, to get moving, because we've got them anyway given to us by nature. Are we, you know, let me ask you a question that was asked by somebody earlier, Dr. T.
Yeah.
What is the role of passion in all of this? You know, you spoke about purpose, but is passion also, does it play a role in all of this?
Yes. Remember, passion is it works best when it is supporting purpose. Remember, passion is the energy, commitment, and dedication that someone has concerning something of interest. So if someone has a passion for conservation, it means that they have energy, they have dedication and commitment to that cause. Passion always finds a cause, that is what then becomes the circle of purpose. I've connected to this. This is what I was born to do, or this is what I want to do. A lot of times we don't necessarily contextualize it as saying I was born to do this, but man, I've got a burden for this. I want to see a change in this. Like, I've got a friend of mine who is a doctor, and she says, my passion is to cut the cost of healthcare. That's my passion. That's my calling.
Yeah.
And so that's what she gets energy for. You can wake her up on a weekend or whatever and say, hey, what can we do to cut healthcare? She will get up and start discussing concepts with you. Why? Because that's something that she has a passion for. So when passion meets purpose, and energy is there, and that dedication and commitment is there, it becomes unstoppable. You can literally push forward momentum in your life.
Well, the Global Business Connector is answered. He loves your response because he's the one who asked the question. He says that's a brilliant answer. He loves it so much. And he then adds, there are very few people who have that alignment in life, which is said. A question about what you said a bit earlier, the Fishbowl Momentum.
Right.
Lindy M. Caesar says this exists in most marriages as well. She asked a question that I'm not sure whether we should be discussing here, but I'm going to ask you anyway, Dr. T. She says, what are women expected to do in this instance? I just say quit, Lindy. But what do you say, Dr. T?
All right. Can I understand the context? What's talking about?
So the context was the Fishbowl Momentum. And I think what she means is that when women are in marriage, then they're confined. They're not allowed to grow. And
okay.
The question is, what should they do then to avoid the fishbowl impacting their momentum?
Okay. Now, I think we sort of need to revisit the framework of relating. Remember, marriage is built on the concept of relating. The key cement that keeps marriage together is the ability to relate well. That's the most critical thing. And so what I say is that one of the things that keeps relationships fresh is the capacity of both partners to grow. Number one, don't get into a relationship where you are any lesser in terms of your own growth matrix and the understanding of where, a lot of times we get into marriage and relationships on the context of emotions, and we forget principles. But you see, emotions are there to help us experience life. Principles are there to guide us and give us direction in life. The first thing is, don't get into a relationship with somebody who looks down on you and someone who's not interested in your progress. Don't get into a relationship with someone who will grow on their own and they leave you behind here. And then there's a gap, and then the gap becomes the chasm that separates the two of you. So I would say that seek ways within the context of your relationship, seek ways to actually negotiate the fact that you also have to grow. In fact, I say to anyone who wants to get married, don't get married unless that is very clear, that you have a context of growth. You can grow and you can work together to foster growth. You see, because now a lot of people get into marriages, Rams, without that understanding. And then when you want to grow, then you are told, no, who's gonna look after the kids if you want to go and work? Or if you want to go back to school, who's gonna look after the home? I'm gonna provide for you, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. You see, that's a very medieval way of thinking, and it's a very medieval way of trying to build a home. It's important that everybody must have an opportunity to be the best they can be and to be the best version of who they are within the context of a relationship. So you are partners serving the vision of your marriage, serving the vision of your relationship. A relationship without a vision is going nowhere. A marriage without a vision is going nowhere. A company without a vision is going nowhere. So before you sign on the dotted line, find out and have a discussion on the vision of what we are going to build. And that vision must not put you at a disadvantage.
Okay, so Lindiwe, don't get out of that thinking of behind every successful man there's a woman. We also need a successful woman in this game. Time is not on our side, Dr. T, but I want us to, we're going to continue without a fail. We're going to continue next week. But let me ask this question. Are we all created for purpose and not just process?
Right. In fact, you know, there's a cultural thing that the elders, made us believe that that when a child is born, the hand is a fist,
Yeah.
And when someone dies, the hand is open, and the elders tell us that that is indicative that everyone who's born is born carrying something. And the process of life must be a process of you opening up your hand, that by the time you die empty. So you live full, but you die empty. Why? Because no one is born just to be part of the process of life. We are born into process, but process is not the reason why we are born. And that is why whenever I coach, whether it's an executive or it's just someone who needs help and it's a one-on-one session, and I ask, what is your purpose? No, my purpose is to be a parent. My purpose is to be a father. My purpose is to be a husband. That's a byproduct of the process of life. You see, again, having children does not necessarily mean that you are a good father, because making children is a biological process of life. But raising children takes purpose. So it's critical for everybody to understand everybody is born with purpose. There is something that you are carrying that you were born with. Maybe you've never looked deep enough. Maybe you've never applied yourself to find out who you are. Because remember, it's an inward journey. And a lot of times we don't take that inward journey because we don't know how to take the inward journey. And that's why you've got coaches that can help you take the inward journey. I promise you, there is a diamond in everyone. There is purpose locked up in each and every human being that can breathe. Because guess what? A lot of times we allow the circumstances, if you arrive, if I live here and I go to England and I arrive there and it's a rainy day, I then can't make up and say the whole of my whole stay there is terrible because I arrived on a rainy day. No, I still have purpose for why I went there and I do what I need to do. I don't get depressed because it was a rainy day when I arrived. It's the same thing with a lot of us. We look at the fishbowl that we were born into and the limiting circumstances around us, then we begin to think that we don't have purpose. We begin to think that there is no bigger picture to our lives. All there is to me is what I see around me. But I say, no, we are bigger. You are bigger than your job. You are bigger than your circumstances. You are bigger than where you started. That's very important for everyone to understand. We are all born with purpose. The question is, do you discover yours or not?
Oh, Dr. DrThandoSibanda. No, look, I know we have to continue this conversation next week. There's so much more. I mean, we still have to talk about the stages really of getting to that momentum where we can break through and discover our purpose. So we can't do it tonight. I'm glad. You know what? For me as a broadcaster, it means I have the certainty of people coming back because they want to hear the end of this story. So that's good that we didn't finish. It's always nice to keep a bone in the pot for people to come back.
No, absolutely. Next week, I'm going to break it down, Rams. It's going to be an amazing session. I'm going to be talking about what is called the PLA, the Progressive Life Axis. And then I'm going to bring the momentum principles back into it. Man, I need people to come with a pen and a paper, take some notes, because it's going to be good. It's going to be great.
I would be shocked that they have not been taking pen and paper. But because we live in digital world, they go back and rewatch the episode. So maybe the episode is a notebook on its own.
Right.
Yes. But it's been wonderful, Dr. T. As always, I mean, I don't have to tell you, I find a lot of satisfaction from our engagement. So next week, Monday, we continue this conversation. And I put a wager that in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we need to talk about the concept of purpose alone. I think that it will help a lot of people to find their own purpose.
Lovely. Yes. No, that's great. I'd love to do that. I'd definitely love to do that.
Excellent. Yeah. You must have a great evening, Dr. T.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much, Rams. It's been awesome being here, brother.
Always wonderful having you. So tomorrow is Youth Day. And tomorrow we have a special Youth Day edition. Nothing changes. We've got the Quickie and Opportunity Tuesday, but both of those are focused on young people. In fact, this young person we interview in the Quickie is an amazing young girl who was on a trajectory meeting powerful people in the world, including Barack Obama and people like that. She was supposed to go the educated route, but she found a purpose, started a business in Mpumalanga, and she's doing amazing work already as an entrepreneur. So do not ever miss tomorrow's show. And then we've got an opportunity on finance, on funding for your businesses in the townships. 7:30 p.m. as usual tomorrow. Talk with Rams. From me, Rams Mabote, good night and God bless.